In the meantime, the Senate on Friday moved to stop state governors in Nigeria from imposing themselves on local government councils and dissolving the democratically elected officials. To tackle the state governors and put an end to what is considered as executive rascality, Senate called on the federal government to starve all illegally established local government authorities of funds by withholding statutory allocations meant for them and often hijacked by the governors. Senate action followed a motion by Minority Leader Abba Moro, drawing attention to the dissolution of elected councils in Benue by the state governor. Moro called on the Senate to urgently stand up to protect Nigeria's constitution and democracy.
The Senate notes with dismay the dissolution of democratically elected councils in Benue State. The Senate also notes that in placing caretaker committees to replace elected councils is an aberration and alien to the 1999 Constitution as amended of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Dr. Sam Amadi joins us to look at this issue. He is a Rise News analyst and director, Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Thank you, Dr. Sam Amadi, for coming to Newsnight.
Thank you.
We had the same conversation a couple of days ago, you know, the state governors hijacking funds meant for local government officials and indeed dissolving them, I mean the democratically elected officials, and constituting certain committees and governing councils and all that, you know, what have you. Let's begin to look at the cost, social and economic. What are the social and economic costs to this action?
Well, first, we know it's unconstitutional, but beyond constitution, the critical issue is how does it affect development? Mm-hmm. Today, our leaders are COP28 with over-bloated membership or delegates and the issues going on. But the question is, and all in a bid to bring development to the country. So the question then is, why are we overlooking a critical hub of development? You know, often we talk about China. China is supposedly not a democracy because most of the upper elections or appointments are not based on election, meritocracy. But the truth is that if you look at grassroots China, it is democratic. They prioritize democracy at the level of the communities, if you like, the towns, regions. Now, what that does is that it creates a sense of responsibility and civic. So if you look at many of our country today, people talk about patriotism, lack of patriotism. You can't learn patriotism in large territories, Nigeria, but you learn patriotism from civic, from small. So democracy is actually designed for small conclave, people who know themselves who are the same. So the fact that for long we've not had real democracy in local government, in local areas, communities, have deliberately distorted the concept of democracy. So first, the first cost is that democracy has suffered because the people at the grassroots don't have experience of democracy. The people at the grassroots also have no sense of responsibility and duty and rights as citizens. So there are no citizenship at the local level. Okay, if you look at even the First Republic, you had communities, counties provide markets. You had sanitary inspectors who go around looking at how clean neighborhoods are, penalize people for not keeping their neighborhoods and their communities and their families and their house not clean. Those were local government officials. So we're talking about WASH today, the fact that we are still having, you know, we don't have access to basic sanitation. Those are things that local governments that are properly fitted do. They also, we're talking about taxation today, the culture of paying tax. In the First Republic, in the 1960s up to 66, we had regions that are strong. They exact tax, duties from local people, by local authorities, and the people themselves demand accountability and performance. So that's a problem. Again, economy in terms of cost, if you look at the amount of money that's wasted, you know, if you look at most of the governors who are facing trial today in EFCC are facing trial on account of looted local government fund. That's the slush fund, the easy one to target, because most of the local government officials appointed are stooges who basically will be happy with 1% or 10% of the whole budget.
Right.
So if you're talking about corruption at the level of the states. The real driver of it is the fact that the governors have access to these funds. And again, under Obasanjo, Okonjo-Iweala, they tried to create a fiscal responsibility law that constrains that when the money is transferred to states, the federal government wanted to be in charge and monitor use. And the Supreme Court said, based on fiscal federalism, that look, that money, the law says, just put it in joint account. So we have a double whammy. You don't have local governments that all the local government officials are accountable to the governor, person to the people. And secondly, you have these funds put in a joint account, which the governor manages, and then governor has no accountability to nominees who are not elected. So the moment you create elected local government, you create an accountability framework that reduces the prospect and possibility of governors looting this fund easily. So it's like damming an ocean. You know, the water is falling and you're bailing with a cup. You are bailing water with a cup and you're allowing inflow, waterfall, filling the place and using cup to deal. So EFCC is prosecuting governors and then allow the prospect, the incentive to be strong for governors to keep on looting those funds. So beyond issues of constitutionalism, which is very important, one of the problems we should realize that as long as you have local governments not accountable to the people by virtue of election, we will continue to have, first, the lack of citizenship in local area. People don't know what to be a citizen. They have no sense of obligation. You're going to have skewed fiscal federalism, so that the local cannot even extract taxes and they will not be able to deliver services.
Skewed fiscal federalism, you call it. In this case, why can't we have the kind of democracy that respects the rule of law, Dr. Amadi? What usually causes the breach of constitution and breach of court orders, especially in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, it's this idea of lack of accountability and also sometimes needless. I give an example. Just like the issue around the appointment of the NNPC chairman, I mean, it's needless conflict. The federal government has the capability to go to court, vacate a court order. Then you can build on that. So they just simply dismiss those orders, sit back home and make an appointment when you know that there is an existing order of court that says this person is a chairman and that removing him is illegal. So what I expect the government to do is to do the normal thing, either comply or go to appeal and get it vacated. Now, so this tendency of overlooking constitutional provision or even court order by people in an executive position is a tissue rejection that arises from this notion of unaccountable kingship, elected kingship. So we see the president, we see the executive governors as elected kingship. They're like kings. And the notion that they are constrained either by court, by legislature, some of the governors or even the president sometimes, they will override National Assembly, even laws, deliberate disregard of laws. And so, but the problem is that it speaks, that's the major brand eroder. So you may be working hard to bring investors, but the biggest brand eroder for any country, especially in today's world of what Thomas Friedman called electronic head, the corporate world, global capital, is like mad people. They just hear a virus, they just sense panic, they sense lawlessness, they flee. So the notion that you are spending time and money wooing people to come, whereas by a click of the computer, they see that this is a country that does not, that deliberately,
that they shouldn't go to,
deliberately disobey constitutional rules, deliberately disobey court orders. You just pour water on the ground. It's wasted because they sense it, they understand it. This is not about, you can do 1 million trips if you like, pack all the country, have photo ops with all the kings and queens all over the world. The business guys deal with information. There are advisory services all over the world. They understand real time. And the first indicator for them has always been, is this a stable society? And stability is around obedience to the Constitution and obedience to court orders. So if you're a country that deliberately disobeys court order that says A is the chairman by virtue of CSC, by virtue of this, you disregard it. You don't care to go to court to vacate it because you can appeal and get it removed for good public interest. But you don't go to that route. You simply appoint somebody, disregard it, or Constitution says local government must be elected, and you override. So the notion that we can easily dispense with rules, whether the constitutional rules or rules by a court, is the one that undermines, and as we look at real time, if you look at the investment coming to the oil and gas sector in West Africa, Nigeria is the least. Angola, all of these people, we have no real investment. Forget the talk. Nobody has invested. If you look at the graph, we have very few, the smallest investment. The investment is going to Angola, going to Ghana. So the world is listening. They're watching. That look, we're not a people who we can, no certainty. Why do we have to do business where we're not sure? A government may want to reward somebody, their friend, and upset real business transactions. So if you can remove or disregard the court order about who is the chairman of NNPC and put in qualified, but somebody close to you without that order, then why should I think that my investment has certainty that even if I invest 1 billion with assurance of existing legal framework today, the PIA, there's no assurance anything to investor that the man who, the plaintiff who can make an order, override a court order, can at the same time make an order, override a contractual commitment. So that's really the dangerous terrain where we find ourselves right now.
Interesting. So Dr. Sam Amadi, what you're saying is that until we put our home in order and ensure that charity indeed begins at home, we're just kicking the can down the road.
Absolutely. We're just pouring water on a basket that is open and wasting our time.
On the back of a duck.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Amadi, for coming to News Night.